everyone, Aaron Lovejoy here from Miniature Monthly. Welcome back to the Tank Paint Along. Today, we're going to put some cool wood effects on the shield. We're going to do some painted wood with maybe a little bits of it rubbed off. We're even going to pimp out his bandage. And if you get a little queasy at the sight of blood, you may want to close your eyes because we're going to put some blood on it. Let's go. Alright, so we got his skin on and all that stuff. I want to do some micro detailing of the face and hands and, well, the whole body. But first we need to finish off a couple other areas because part of the micro detailing will be adding some airbrushed effects, and I want to do that with everything. So let's get the rest of these parts painted up real quick. We're going to do the wooden planks on his shield. I want to do like a two-tone blue with a white stripe on the wood, and I'm going to show you how to do that real quick, and we're also going to do the wood right here. So let's get started on that. Alright, if you're keeping track, here's the colors we used. Reaper Master Series Solid Black HD. From Formula P3 we have Cygnus Yellow, Coal Black, Arcane Blue, and Minoth White base. We'll throw in a little bit of Citadel's Mournfang Brown, Tamiya Clear Red, and Schmincke Titanium White. Let's do this. Bam! Like a ninja. Alright, so you can see our pattern right here. We've got the blue wood grain and then the white stripe, and so we want to mirror that on this side. As you can see, there's some really cool sculpted detail that Patrick Keith did on this model, and we're going to kind of use that to our advantage. The zenithal highlighting has already left some of that, got us some good contrast there, so we're going to try to keep some of that going. So we're going to have the white is up here in front. If you notice, I did right down the middle of this plank is where the white started. So we are going to have to do right down the center line right there of that plank. The rest will be dark blue. So let's mix up our colors. I'm going to use the Arcane Blue mixed with a little Coal Black. Maybe a little bit of black. Basically, I just want to get kind of a shadowy color, and I want to get even a darker shadowy color. So let's mix up towards the tail end of this. Let's mix up a real dark version of that. So we're going to use our wet on wet techniques, and we're going to start with the darkest color. Let's start it right here where the darkest shades are. So I'm just going to place that in there. And I'm letting it get down in all the cracks and everything. Then we're going to switch to the little bit lighter version of that. And we'll do that lighter version of my shadow up here. Notice I'm putting it on and I'm letting the paint run out where it doesn't quite run out enough. Just kind of wipe my brush off real quick and feather it in. And we'll just grab the pure Arcane Blue up towards the front of the shield, the front and the top of the shield. And we'll just place that in here like that as well. Alright, so that's blended in. If you notice, when I got to blending in there, I pushed down on my brush a little bit harder. I bend the brush down like that. So at the start of the stroke, I have my brush up like this, and then as I blend, I push down a little bit harder, and this facilitates that blend in there. Now let's do a quick dry fit. And put that in right there. I think that looks pretty cool. I mean, you really don't see much more of the blue, maybe through his legs. So we are good to go on that. Our next step is we are going to add a little bit of white to our Arcane Blue, a little bit of Titanium White, just a smidge, and let's grab just a tipful of paint, and let's start putting in some kind of faux wood grain here. Yeah, remember in our reference picture that we looked at, it was really kind of jaggedy and twisted and all that stuff. So I'm just going to start putting this in, kind of following the natural wood grain that's sculpted on here. And kind of giving it an irregular pattern. Maybe in the darker area, I'm just going to use straight arcane blue. Because this would actually look like a highlight down there instead of our mid-tone. So I'm just putting those little streaks of brown in. Sometimes I'm letting it get kind of choppy, because that's oftentimes how wood ends up looking when it gets older. It's really important to have a good fine tip on your brush. You see my brush is got a pretty good tip on it. So everyone always talks about having a good tip on your brush, but what exactly does that mean? Here we have a couple Raphael 8404 brushes. Now they look like they have pretty good tips on them, but actually both of these brushes are spent. Here's two brand new Raphael 8404s. See the difference? Now next to each other? Wow. You can tell the older brush has a rounded tip on it. Even though it looked really fine, it's not a good point. So some of this, I definitely want to not have, I want to break up my lines so that it looks like it's wood grain, but also that the paint is weathering off. So it's not quite, we don't want it to be perfect. You can turn that shield around. Get some of the lines from the other angle. Alright. Now I'm just going to add a little bit more white to the mix. Especially down where the edges of the wood was. Kind of want to define that edge so you can really see where each plank ends. Okay, with each successive highlight, I'm basically showing paint that has lifted off the wood or has been damaged in some sort of way. Instead of solid wavy lines, I'm now doing dots and dashes to create this effect. Okay, and we're going to mix a little bit of our titanium white with black to make a gray. Don't want it too dark. And I even want a little bit of our Mournfang brown in there, so I want it like a brownish gray. The Mournfang brown is basically a orangey brown. That will warm up our white and look good against the cool arcane blue. It'll also help tie in our colors with the copper, as it was made with Mournfang brown as well. And we are going to have to put in our planks right here, our stripe. Oops. So you might be asking yourself, why did I base coat the entire thing blue and even put in some details? Well, I wanted the wood grain to flow better, and so now when I put the white over the blue, I'll be able to tie in with those blue lines that are streaking into the white areas. So basically it just helps me have a more cohesive pattern between the two colors. And also, if a little bit of the blue shows through the white, it just looks like maybe there was an underpainting of blue and the white paint's chipped off, and it all works out. If you wanted to really take your time, you could actually try to not paint down in the cracks of each plank, but I think for this, I'm okay with painting everything. It goes a little bit faster. Tap it in, and grab a little bit more, do a little bit pseudo loaded brush action. We don't want that too bright. Alright, now just like with the blue, just keep adding. There's a white in there. Concentrating especially on those edges of the wood. So I'm almost thinking of it like as almost like hair. I'm taking each little bit of the wood grain, and I'm putting little streaks into that wood grain, following the direction that the wood grain is going in, so that this looks kind of cool and gives us that textury look. Alright, okay, so we got our two colors in. Now we're going to add a little bit of this brown and maybe a little bit of white. That might have been too much. And a little yellow. I'm going to put in the cracks of each one of these planks. So our blue and white wood is fairly desaturated. So to get the brown to show through, if I put another desaturated brown on, it's not really going to show up very well. So we need saturation. That's why we're using the Mournfang brown mixed with a little bit of Cygnus yellow. Keep that saturation really good, and that will help that brown show up in those white and blue areas. The edge between the planks. Maybe when they were painting it, it didn't get wood down, or it didn't get paint down in there quite as much, or whatever. But this is a nice way to kind of differentiate between the separate planks. And then we can take and there's some areas where the wood is rubbed off. So just put a little splotch, and then I'm going to pull up some areas up and down. Maybe you could even follow the wood grain a little bit on this. This is where the paint is rubbed off and the wood is just showing through. Put some down here. Grab a little bit of black and maybe this dark blue, and let's make a couple of these spots a little bit darker. And then we'll grab just some pure white. Some white with our gray. And let's bounce up this. Basically right here, I want to just kind of show that some of the wood is like lifted up a little bit or whatever. Concentrating little dots and dashes around where the wood is showing through, and also where the plank meets the other plank. And in spots, maybe even going straight pure white. I try to avoid just pure white stuff. I don't want it to look like N&M. But I do want you to be able to see it. Alright, and then we'll do the same thing with that blue. Got titanium white with our arcane. And this we probably won't have to put the extra layers on. At least the extra layers of white. The trick here is to put these little dots in, but then don't make them look like just a bunch of dots. Get it a little bit irregular. You're golden. And then we can come back in with some pure arcane blue. Maybe we'll make a couple little dots right in the middle of those brown areas. So it looks like where paint wasn't rubbed off. Just little bitty dots. Alright, now let's mix up like a glaze. That's too much water. Pretty see-through. So here's another benefit to not thinning all your paint that's on your palette. My paint was a little bit too thinned out, so I just grabbed from the thicker area of paint and mix it in. You see through. Alright. That'll probably work. So let's just kind of wash this over a couple little areas. And to make sure that I don't get any water rings, I'm just going to use the second brush and kind of feather out the outside edges. And put it in the white as well. So I have this rule: if nothing happens, you didn't put enough on. So let's add a little bit more. And feather it. And put a little bit down here. And again, feather it. And then let's grab some of this coal black, and I'm just going to put a little bit of water in it. Maybe a little bit of the brown too. Knock it down a little bit. And let's put it over here. My shadows. And we'll just feather it up. Like that. I'll put it across the top. Right on around. And you probably noticed that I didn't paint the metal parts here, and that's because I knew that I would get paint all over it from the wood grain. I'm mixing up just a little bit more morphing brown into that blue mixture. Alright. Okay, now that we got a little bit more contrast, I want to grab some more of this arcane blue. And I just want to make sure that there's lots of little points of interest in here. Put that on right like that. And right up in here. It's all about these little details. This is what separates a really good paint job, I guess, from an okay paint job. It's just the attention to detail. And I tell that to people all the time. You know, most of you are pretty proficient painters, but what people like to do is all the little details, and the little details is what's gonna eventually win you contests and stuff like that, and just make your whole painting experience that much better. It's these little details that start getting me daydreaming. You know, I think like, oh, how did the paint rub off of his shield that way, or whatever. You know, it just kind of is what it is. Alright, so I'm just putting a couple of these little bits of paint back in. And we will grab some white. Do the white side. So basically right here, I'm putting white and blue paint in their respective sides back into where the brown is. This makes it look like some of that paint is still stuck on there. It hasn't all chipped off. Looks really cool and really realistic, just like in the photo. Put some down in here. There we go. Alright, so that's the wood grain on there and over here. And we're just going to do the same thing on his little wooden Under Armour, his Kevlar. Let's put this darker shade in. And on this, I'm just going to, since it's so small, I'm just going to do it all the darker shade. We'll do this side, darker shade. I think it could almost be darker. Let's just grab some color. See, I'm putting this right over the other wet paint and blending it in. Alright, so that's that. Now we will grab a little bit more black into this white. I want to put our white stripe on here. Let's just say he's in that band, the White Stripes, and so I don't know. So I've been trying to work the band The White Stripes into one of my videos, and I finally did it. Let's just say that he likes... They're a little bit more uniform in their uniforms, and so he has his symbol on everything. It's just awesome. He loves it. Everyone in his unit loves it. All right, so that's that. Then we do the same thing we did on the shield. Put our little strips in here. The question will be, do we want the worn off wood on this? And the answer is probably yes, but let's just get this on first. It might look really cool without it, but the problem is we've got everything to look, you know, kind of uniform. So if the paint rubbed off on the other spots, chances are pretty good that the paint will rub off on these spots as well. So remember, our light's coming from this direction, so I want all of these, not this side, but this side of the wood plank to have the sort of the highlight on it. And then let's just work in this brown. Let's see here. Maybe more of the worn off areas will be up towards the top. Yeah, there we go. Do a little bit more. It's not super visible. I think we need more vibrancy to the color to make it show up. So I'm just going to add a little bit more yellow and a little bit more Mournfang. And we'll do it like that. And there we go. Yeah, I think that works. I'll grab our Mournfang mixed with black and put it just in these cracks. So it looks like they're a little deeper than they actually are. And then we'll grab our wash, or not our wash, our glaze, our Mournfang glaze, just to kind of color that area, and then come back with our blue, our arcane blue, and make it look like there's just little parts where the paint failed and parts where the paint didn't fail. So kind of gives it that wooden look. There we go, and maybe these. I want to give a little more contrast between the bottom edge of this and the armor plate in front. So let's just put, I'm going to put that coal black and Mournfang brown mix right there. And then the second brush, just kind of wipe it around the bottom edge. You see it just kind of disappear there. A little bit more. And that gives us a little bit more definition right there. All right, so we got our wood painted on the shield and that. Let's just finish up the metallics right here. So we're going to be doing the same mix for our silver as we did before. Reaper Master Series Solid Black mixed with a little Formula P3 Minoth White base. Okay, we're going to start by putting our this shade on to the lower areas of the metallic stuff. And we went with the darker shade because I wanted just to contrast to the copper. The copper and the wood is both pretty light. And so we need something that just is different, because if we made a real light metallic, kind of like we did on the armor that he's wearing, it wouldn't show up as well. So we need a little bit of contrast here. So I'm just adding in a little bit more Minoth White, just like we did on the armor. I think that's too bright. Just grab the darker color and put it right on top. There we go. I do want it to be a little bit lighter than the lower areas, but not too much. The other thing is, don't forget to put the edging on this. I originally painted this black just to kind of, so I could see it. So I could see my contrast a little bit better. Alright, so let's grab a little bit lighter version of this color. And it looks a little bit bright, but it will dry darker. Just do the old 2-brush blend to fade out that edge. Put it again right here, about halfway down, and then 2-brush it back up. Alright, so that's our base coat. Then we'll just start adding progressively lighter shades of white to our edges. There's 2 little rivets or bolts or whatever up there. 2 at the bottom. Oops. Went outside of line. Holy cow, I'm like sloppy. Never fear, get those little parts in there. Alright, fixed it. Okay, so you see how that dark N&M silver only changed slightly from the bottom to the top? Doesn't really look like metallics. What will make it look like metallics is our edge highlighting coming up next. Now we'll just start picking out these edges. Just going to keep adding white progressively until I can see it. Again, this is kind of old jaggedy armor, so probably we don't want our highlights to be all perfect. We want them to be a little bit jaggedy themselves. So armor's older. If this was brand new armor, then yes, we could make it. Our lines could be a little bit not dotted, but since it's older armor, we definitely want those little dots in there. Dots and dashes kind of simulate rough surfaces, rough shiny surfaces. You see I'm just kind of working in my battle damage at the same exact time. Also, in some areas where I see there's battle damage, like right here, maybe we'll finish that one down. If I screw up, make it too thick, I can always come back with my base tone and thin it back up. That looks good. And we'll put a couple extra spots just to kind of spruce it up a little bit, and there we go. Alright. Okay, for his handle, I'm going to do the same color. Start with my darker version. And paint it all the way around. Paint the top. And tops all these. And grab a little bit more Minoth white. So this is where it's going to get a little bit weird because technically this cylinder right here is smaller and then it drops off back here. So maybe we're going to do a faux black area. And that's where the pipe stops, or the cylinder stops. And our light source is coming in from this way, so it would actually be reflecting on this side of the cylinder. I'm just gonna wipe my brush off or lick it. And go like that. And I'm gonna grab some more. I want this to be real bright up, oops, towards the top. That, and grab that black back, fix that. Pretty simple. Maybe, I think there would be like a scratch or two up here. It's the handle, he's probably bashing people with it. Maybe a couple scratches on the shaft itself. And then we gotta put our highlight in. Light's coming down this way, so I'd probably highlight on the back side of this. And the underside of this. Alright, so I want to do a woven texture for his little bandage here, and so I'm going to grab some of that same brownish gray color, and I'm going to do little streaks like this. If you remember when we base coated this, it was basically solid. solid color, just wet blended. Maybe around towards the back we'll go a little bit darker. It's just a touch. And we'll grab our white. You see I'm flattening my brush out so it's very thin. So I'm using a size 0 brush, and you can see I flatten it out to a really thin line like that. And I do that on my palette, and you can do it on your finger as well. So I'm going to do several strokes, and I'm getting closer and closer with each stroke. And that can give me a very thin line. Now, if I just go in and try to watch my brush hit the piece of paper, see how it pushed too hard? And now it's a much thicker line. It's too much pressure. So the trick to making thin lines is flattening out your brush, and you can't actually see it hit. It just, when the color goes on, that's when it happens. Very thin brush, or a very thin line. So those darker lines help give us a little bit of contrast. Very lightly painting this on. Barely touching it, because the harder I touch it, the more that brush is going to not be a thin line. It's going to push out and be thicker. Then we're going to go this way. Again, I'm not trying to make a straight line from this side to that side. I'm making lots of tiny straight lines that are a little bit wobbly, that are going in basically the same direction, and they will create the illusion that there's this fine woven texture. And we can just kind of go back and forth with the gray lines and the white lines. Maybe even do the gray lines like this. And basically we're putting so many lines that it doesn't even matter if we mess up and have a real thick line, because you can always come back in and cut those lines in half, all that good stuff. And then right where we've got our brightest light coming in, I want to make sure that some nice white lines there. Alright. Now we'll grab our darker gray, make a kind of a glaze out of it. And we're just going to glaze down the back end of this. Kind of wipe my brush off and just coax that paint around. And we'll put some over here. There we go. Now maybe he got wounded in a war or whatever. He's fighting all the crazy critters coming out of the water. I'm gonna grab some of this Tamiya Clear Red. Super awesome for blood effects. And it smells like delicious cough syrup. And let's see here. Grab a little bit of my black, mix it in with some of the red. This will simulate older blood. So this one, definitely do not lick your brush. because it is pretty disgusting. And we're gonna kind of put this in there, and then we'll grab some of the regular red just to give us a different color. Put it in there as well. And just kind of make it look so it's not just like a big blob of red. But there, that'll it's a good little cut on his arm. It's in there. There we go. Alright, so what have we learned today? All the best painters have one thing in common. They pay attention to their surroundings. They look at things, they analyze it, and they copy it. Number 2, use reference photos to make your textures better. Number 3, make sure your brush has a good tip for fine details. Number 4, we use saturated colors next to desaturated colors to make the wood show up better against the blue and white planks. Number 5, Aaron loves the white stripes. Number 6, two-brush blending works really well. Check out Matt DiPietro's two-brush blending videos to learn more. Number 7, don't forget to add scratches to your metallic parts. It's the little details that count. Number 8, when drawing those thin lines on Tank's bandage, make sure to use really light pressure on your brush. The harder your pressure, the thicker the line will be. So to get those really fine details, you're going to have to be really soft with your brush. Probably won't even be able to see it hitting the model. Just wait till the color hits the model and you're good. Number 9, to me a clear red makes awesome blood effects. Thanks again for watching this episode of the Tank Paint-Along. Remember, every episode of the Tank Paint-Along is a lesson. So even if you're not painting Tank, you can still learn something about textures, non-metallic metal, whatever. Stay tuned for the next episode where we tackle Tank's turtle shell. Brush up on your skills on layering, glazing, two-brush blending, and wet blending. We'll even do the freehand pattern on the edges of his shell. Thanks again for being part of the Miniature Monthly team. We'll catch you on the flip side.